तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। स्थावरं जङ्गमं व्याप्तं येन कृत्स्नं चराचरं तत्पदं दर्शितं येन तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। चिद्रूपेण परिव्याप्तं त्रैलोक्यं सचराचरं तत्पदं दर्शितं येन तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। सर्वश्रुतिशिरोरत्न समुद्भासितमूर्तये आत्मज्ञानाग्निदानेन तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। चैतन्यः शाश्वतः शान्तो व्योमातीतो निरञ्जनः बिन्दुनादकलातीतः तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। ज्ञानशक्तिसमारूढस्तत्त्वमाला विभूषितः भुक्तिमुक्तिप्रदाता च तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। अनेकजन्मसम्प्राप्ता कर्मेन्धनविदाहिने आत्मज्ञानाग्निदानेन तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। शोषणं भवसिन्धोश्च प्रापणं सारसम्पदः यस्य पादोदकं सम्यक् तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। न गुरोरधिकं तत्त्वं न गुरोरधिकं तपः तत्त्वज्ञानात् परं नास्ति तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। मन्नाथ श्रीजगन्नाथो मद्गुरु श्रीजगद्गुरु मदात्मा सर्वभूतात्मा तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः।
So welcome everyone. Let us start. Just sharing the prayers for today. So we have started this phase in mother's life where mother has come to Pondicherry for the first time, and I think the first meeting with Sri Aurobindo was on 29th March, of which mother writes about March 30. I think we'll go through today some anecdotes regarding this meeting. And then we have April 1, which we have to take up today. So, so I thought there is a book by K.R. Srinivasa Iyengar. Some of us may know about it. And it's a very thick book. It's called On the Mother, where there is the whole journey of mother's life, almost like depicted with many, many anecdotes and even mother's own words, her mission and meeting with Mother Sri Aurobindo. So I thought maybe this phase of their life where the meeting is happening for the first time, I thought I'll read some, maybe a few anecdotes from that book before we move on to the prayer today, which is April 1, 1914. So, would anyone want to share before I start reading it out from the book? Anything that is coming to you?
No, I think that will be nice because there is a background to it, and it's
Yeah,
better to know that.
yes, I also thought so. Okay, so let's go through this meeting. I'm going to read today this bit from again the book On the Mother by K.R. Srinivasa Iyengar. So he shares on page 86 for those of us who have the book. I'm going to maybe stop share for some time. On 29th March 1914, the very day they arrived in Pondicherry from France, Meera and Paul Richard met Sri Aurobindo in the afternoon at 3:30. They were received at the top of the stairs that led up to the upstairs veranda, the moment Meera had so ardently looked forward to had arrived at last. And there was a blaze of instantaneous recognition. So the recognition that happened between mother and Sri Aurobindo, and it was like wordless recognition. There was no words exchanged, and mother knew that she has met what was her destiny. Sri Aurobindo was clearly the master of her occult life, the Krishna she had met so often in her dream experiences. Their first meeting and the current of feelings that may have gone through them are echoed in these lines of Savitri. I'm going to just turn on the video for a while. So these lines in Savitri describe their first meeting. Here first she met on the uncertain earth the one for whom her heart had come so far, attracted as in heaven, star by star. They wondered at each other and rejoiced and wove affinity in a silent gaze. So it's really beautiful to read these lines. A moment passed that was eternity's ray, an hour began the matrix of new time. And this Alokda had shared something on psychic shock, which I'm going to add on to this sharing. That when there is a psychic meeting happening, two people with the same mission, or just like this meeting of Mother and Sri Aurobindo, where there is an instant recognition, and that there is no logic to it, there is no reason to it. So I'm going to read these words by Mother. I think it's the mother, or maybe Sri Aurobindo. I just copied it for myself. So it's called Psychic Shock. And mother says the perception of exterior consciousness may deny the perception of the psychic. But the psychic has the true knowledge, an intuitive, instinctive knowledge. It says, I know. I cannot give reasons, but I know. For its knowledge is not mental, based on experience or proved true. It does not believe after proofs are given. Faith is the movement of the soul whose knowledge is spontaneous and direct. And even if the whole world denies and brings forward 1,000 proofs to the contrary, still it knows by an inner knowledge, a direct perception that can stand against everything. So I'm sure all of us have glimpses of this knowing, when we knew that in this moment, this is true for me, or maybe a meeting with someone which turns the pages of our life. And then she continues, the knowledge of the psychic is something which is concrete and tangible, a solid mass. You can also bring it into your mental, vital, and physical. And then you have integral faith, a faith which can really move mountains. But nothing in the being must come and say, it is not like that, or ask for a test. By the least half belief, you spoil matters. How can the Supreme manifest if faith is not integral and immovable? A man can come to a yogi and have a sudden faith that this person will lead him to his goal. He does not know whether the person has knowledge or not. He feels a psychic shock and knows that he has met his master. So we have many instances of that kind, and in our lives also there may be instances of this kind where there is a sudden recognition that this is true and this is what I was born to do. So Alokda was sharing that this is called psychic shock, and also in mother's words it's called psychic shock. Not like really a shock, but it's like an instant recognition that this is where I am supposed to be right now. You just know that it's the right moment for you. So yeah, anything here, anyone, before I read ahead? Okay. So then Amal Kiran or KD Setna, he shares about this meeting. Before meeting Sri Aurobindo, she used to find for her various spiritual experiences and realizations, a poise for life work by giving them a mold with the enlightened mind. All kinds of powerful ideas she had for the world upliftment, ideas, artistic, social, religious. At the sight of Sri Aurobindo, she aspired to a total cessation of all mental moods. So all the mental constructions that were mother was having before meeting Sri Aurobindo, she shares that they did not need to be. So they had led me this far, and now there was no need of those mental constructions to be. So total cessation of all mental modes. She did not speak a word, nor did he. She just sat at his feet and closed her eyes, keeping her mind open to him. After a while, there came from above an infinite silence that settled in her mind. Everything was gone. All those fine and great ideas vanished, and there was only a vacant, imperturbable waiting for what was beyond mind. And when Alokda shared about this, he was also talking about, for example, when we are reaching Pondicherry or some other place that we have really, really wanted to visit for our heart's sake. And then there are all the troubles that we are taking, like going in a bus, taking this flight, and finally, when we enter Samadhi, we just know that I have arrived. This is where I'm supposed to be. So there is a peace there is a joy in the being. And you just know that this is where you're supposed to be. And then I think Jishnuji once had shared about the surrender and humility that mother had, even with irrespective of so many experiences she already had. So Nonali Da, he also shares about this. The first time Sri Aurobindo happened to describe her qualities, he said he had never seen anywhere a self-surrender so absolute and unreserved. He had added a comment that perhaps it was only women who were capable of giving themselves so entirely and with such sovereign ease. This implies a complete obliteration of the past, erasing it with its virtues and faults. And when she came here, she gave herself up to the Lord, Sri Aurobindo, with the candid simplicity of a child, after erasing from herself all her past all her spiritual attainments, all the riches of her consciousness. Like a newborn babe, she felt she possessed nothing. She was to learn everything right from the start, as if she had known or heard about nothing. So, as if there's a complete erase, and all the experiences or whatever she had before, it was just a rehearsal or a preparation to bring her here where she is supposed to be. And then mother herself recollects about this meeting 16 years after. She says, when I first met Sri Aurobindo in Pondicherry, I was in deep concentration, seeing things in the supermind, things but that were to be, but which were somehow not manifesting. I told Sri Aurobindo what I had seen, and I asked him if they would manifest. He simply said yes. And immediately I saw that the supramental had touched the earth and was beginning to be realized. This was the first time I had witnessed the power to make real what is true. And then again, Amal Kiran talks about this wordless communion that took place between Mother and Sri Aurobindo first time. And he comments that Sri Aurobindo's main movement of consciousness was immense knowledge power from above the mind. So how he describes higher mind, illumined mind, intuitive mind over mind. So knowledge power above, from above the mind, though whatever was necessary for an integral spirituality was also there in one form or another. And then he shares about mother's specification, if one can say. The mother's chief movement may be said to have an intense love power, which we also see in Savitri, that she became the receptacle, she was the perfect receptacle for love. So, love power from behind the heart, even if all else needed for an all round yoga was present as a ready accessory. And when she and Sri Aurobindo met, they completed each other, brought fully into play the spiritual energies in both, and started the work of total earth transformation from high above and deep within. So, Mother's power of love from deep within the heart and from the higher ranges of mind that was with Sri Aurobindo. And then again, we are recapitulating before we come to April 1. So, on the diary entry of Mother, which we have already gone through, March 30, 1914, she now shares when this meeting has happened and she clearly sees the path ahead. She says, gradually the horizon becomes distinct, the path grows clearer, and we move towards a greater and greater certitude. It matters little that there are thousands of beings plunged in the densest ignorance. He whom we saw yesterday is on earth. His presence is enough to prove that a day will come when darkness shall be transformed into light and thy reign shall be indeed established upon earth. O Lord, divine builder of this marvel, my heart overflows with joy and gratitude when I think of it, and my hope has no bounds. So, as if a new phase full of progress and possibilities is opening up. My adoration is beyond all words, and my reverence is silent. And again, we have shared this just to give us that context. She had found in Sri Aurobindo a being who had attained the perfect consciousness and became integrally one of thy servitors. This we were discussing last time. I think Jishnuji was sharing about this, that in Sri Aurobindo, she saw that perfect consciousness and integrally one of divine servitors. And it had seemed to her that she was still very far from what I yearned to realize, Mother shares in prayer. But she was happy that a new dawn in her life had arrived and would now take her to the beckoning noon. And then he talks about the prayer that we are going to reflect upon today. So, April 1. So anything anyone wants to share?
Yeah, Monica ji, if I can read something
Yes, please.
about
Yeah.
the same which you read, but slightly differently, slightly just adding here and there, more so from mother's words. So I will start from there, beginning with mother's words. Sri Aurobindo saw with more clarity, said mother to Satprem while explaining a certain situation. It was even the first thing he told the boys around him when I came here in 1914. He had seen me but once. He told them Mira, at that time he used to call me by first name, was born free. He also told the boys, basically here I'm just adding, he had told Barin, Sri Aurobindo's brother. He also told the boys that he had never seen anywhere a self-surrender so absolute and unreserved. Mira had met Sri Aurobindo on 29th of March at 3:30 in the afternoon at the guest house to which Sri Aurobindo had moved with the boys a few months earlier. We have promptings, and here what had happened is just for the since we are discussing the events on that day, mother met Sri Aurobindo at 3:30. So initially, Paul Risher met him in the first half, and mother had some inclination. She said, "I felt something that for the first time I should meet him alone." And so I said that I will meet him separately. So that's why she went there at 3:30. We have promptings more insistent than of reason. Mira was prompted by what she did not know to go to see Sri Aurobindo all alone. I climbed up the stairway and he was standing there, waiting for me at the top of the stairs. Mother's eyes widened at the recollection. Exactly my vision. Dressed the same way, in the same position, in profile, his head held high. He turned his head towards me, and I saw in his eyes that it was he. The two things clicked, mother gestured. The inner experience immediately combined with the outer experience, and there was a fusion, the decisive shock. They talked that day a little. So basically, actually, she had asked on that day 3 questions. One question was basically, mother said, "What do you think of samadhi?" Of that state of trance when one does not remember. Because mother said, "I never had samadhi in that way." And then Sri Aurobindo said, it never happened to me also. So both of them laughed. The second question she asked was that why she had been so mediocre in everything, painting, writing, music, even though she had many talents. Sri Aurobindo's answer was simply that was indispensable for her development. And the third thing is, which mother asked is, um, she asked, should you do your yoga, attain the goal, and then afterwards take up the work with others? Or should you immediately let all those who have the same aspiration gather around you and go forward all together towards the goal? Because because of my earlier work and all that I had tried out, I came to Sri Aurobindo with this question very precisely formulated. Because two possibilities were there, either to practice an intensive individual sadhana, withdraw from the world, or to let the group form naturally and spontaneously, not preventing it from being formed. The circumstances were such that no choice was required. I mean, quite naturally, spontaneously, the group was formed in such a way that it became an imperious necessity. Basically, ashram was formed slowly. And then about the next day, Mira told, yeah, it was mental stillness she had striven to obtain. Actually, mother had wanted this stillness, but she did not speak to Sri Aurobindo about it. A mental stillness in which anything can pass through your head without causing the least ripple. It is the stuff of the mental being that is still, so still that nothing disturbs it, as Sri Aurobindo described it. If thoughts or activities come, they come from outside and cross the mind as a flight of birds crosses the sky in a windless air. It passes, disturbs nothing, leaving no trace. Mother said candidly that she had tried complete mental silence but had not succeeded. I had tried but couldn't do it. I could be silent when I wanted to, but as soon as I stopped thinking solely of that, stopped wanting only that, the invasion resumed. And the work had to be done all over again. Mother sighed. That's all I told him, not in great detail, but in few words. To next day's meeting when with Shurbindo, she went with Paul Rasher. He saw me the next day for half an hour. I sat down. It was on the veranda of the guest house. I was sitting there on the veranda. She sat on the floor near Shurbindo. There was a table in front of him, and Risher was on the other side facing him. They began talking. I'm not going into those details. Shurbindo was seated in a chair, as was Risher across the table. Then I sat down near them, and he began talking with Richard about the world, yoga, future, all kind of things. He already knew that the war was about to break down, that is the First World War. To Mira, who had her visions and revelations, she too, this was past history, and she was not interested in all those speculations. She didn't really listen. I didn't say anything. I didn't think anything, try anything, want anything. I merely sat near him. That day was 30th March 1914. I was just sitting there, not listening, but all at once I felt a great force coming to me, a peace, a silence, something massive. It came, did this. Mother swept her hand across her forehead, descended and stopped here, she pointing to her chest. That is to say, it encompassed the three active mental centers. When they finished talking, I got up and left. And then I noticed that not a single thought remained. I no longer knew anything or understood anything. I was absolutely blank. So I gave thanks to the Lord and thanked Shurbind in my heart. So many things in her life had completely gone from Mira's consciousness. All that was useless, perhaps, but all was preparing the being for its action was held in a clear vision. Even before coming here and meeting Sri Aurobindo, disclosed mother, I had realized everything. I think Monica ji has covered this. Let me just cover another thing. So just here, I will just add a note because mother was very happy with that silence. And here the author writes, but how many are capable of bearing a silent and a holy mind? Sri Aurobindo had imparted, actually, Sri Aurobindo had given the silence to someone else as well. Sri Aurobindo had imparted that gift to others before Mira. One, not a disciple. I had no disciple in those days, explained Sri Aurobindo, asked me how to do yoga. I said, make your mind quiet first. He did this, and his mind became quite silent and empty. Then he rushed me to me saying, my brain is empty of thoughts. I cannot think. I am becoming an idiot. Sri Aurobindo always had a strong sense of the ludicrous. He did not pause to look and see where these thoughts he uttered were coming from. Nor did he realize that one who is already an idiot cannot become one. He added frankly, anyhow, I was not patient in those days and had dropped him and let him lose his miraculously achieved silence. Mira, on the contrary, was very appreciative of the miraculous gift. Afterwards, I kept very still so as not to disturb it. I didn't speak. I took good care to refrain from thinking and held it tight against me. I said to myself, make it last, make it last, make it last. For 8 to 10 days, she hugged it close. She was living in her inner joy while nothing inside her stirred. I spoke as little as possible, and it was like a mechanism. It wasn't me. Then, slowly, as falling drop by drop, something was built up again. But it had no limits. It had no. She paused, looking back across the years. It was vast as the universe, wonderfully still and luminous. Pointing to her head, nothing here, but there, she said, making gesture above the head. And then everything began to be seen from there. Once it was done, it was done. It was well rooted. It never left her, mother told in a wandering voice. As a proof of Sri Aurobindo's power, it's incompatible. I don't believe there has been ever an example of such a, how can I put it, such a total success, a miracle. It has never left me. I went to Japan. We should know that she went to Japan in another, for 5 years after that, 5 to 6 years. I went to Japan. I did all sorts of things, had all possible adventures, even the most unpleasant, but it never left me. Stillness, stillness, stillness. Her voice trailed off. And it was he who did it entirely. I didn't even ask him. There was no aspiration, nothing. I wasn't doing anything, just sitting there. He seemed outwardly to be fully engrossed in his conversation about this and that, and what was going to happen to the world. So I think that's the end of that.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, so I think now we can maybe start with the prayer for today, now that we have a little context of what are the events preceding this. So would anyone want to read out the prayer for us?
I'll read, Monica.
Yes, please.
April 1, 1914. I feel we have entered the very heart of thy sanctuary and grown aware of thy very will. A great joy, a deep peace reign in me, and yet all my inner constructions have vanished like a vain dream, and I find myself now before thy immensity without a frame or system, like a being not yet individualized. All the past, in its external form, seems ridiculously arbitrary to me, and yet I know it was useful in its own time. But now all is changed. A new stage has begun.
Yeah, thank you, Shweta. So would anyone want to share anything on this prayer? Any personal resonances? I think it would be also nice because I'm sure all of us have such we have glimpses of such psychic deep experiences where there is a knowing that one is supposed to be at this place at this moment, and that happens. So if we can share, if you want to share our personal reflections, they are very, very welcome. So please unmute and share.
Yeah, Monica ji, one incident I wanted to share, though I cannot say it's so much like a psychic knowledge. But I remember when I first time went to Pondicherry, I was in college, and we went by train. So in those days, it used to take 2 days, 2.5. You reach Chennai from their bus, very early morning bus. So we were naturally tired, I remember. And we were staying in this international guest house. So I went with a couple of friends. And I remember the first thing that I did is, of course, I took shower, and while the others were resting, I thought, and that time I did not know anything of Pondicherry. I mean, where ashram is, where things are, not the language as well. And so I remember I just said, no, first, before I do anything, something was pulling me like that, I thought. And so I just walked across the street and etc. And it's like automatically I went to the ashram and to the samadhi. So I feel that is one incident which I think is very clearly in my memory. I
Yeah.
did not have to ask anyone, and at that time I did not know Pondicherry at all.
Yeah.
It's the
Yeah.
first time I went there.
Yeah.
As if, this is where I have to go.
Mm.
Exactly.
Mm. Mm. Yes. Yes. Beautiful. Yes. Yeah. Would anyone want to share, as Jishnuji shared, anything that is resonating like that? And it's also very interesting how we can actually, if we are more in the mental being, more like logical, analytical, many a times, as mother shares, it happens that we have been given an experience, and there has been like a call from the heart within, and yet there are times where it gets covered by the analytical logical mind. So although there is a knowing that is persisting, which is a not very aggressive knowing, but it's a persistent knowing, and yet at times it happens that out because of the analytical mind, I'm not able to follow the call. But the signal that it's a psychic call, as mother shares, that it is persistent, it is not loud, but it is persistent, so it persists. And many, if maybe many years have passed and I have not really heard it fully or given time to it, then also many a times there is a regret, that I knew it but I did not follow it. So that's also there. For those of us, many a times it happens that one is not able to follow that little call that is there. So that persistence and non-aggressiveness is also there along with in the psychic call. And when we have followed it, there we get joy and peace, which comes in the next one actually. Here in the next one, uh, I think maybe in this one only. Where was it? Yeah, this one. So a great joy, a deep peace reign in me, and yet my all my inner constructions have vanished like a vain dream. So you just, as Jishnuji was sharing, one is there at the right place or with the right person, or wherever in the right moment. And the signal is that there is a great joy, deep peace, that one has done the right action. And it's not active thinking, it's as Jishnuji shared, your feet just walk up to that place or wherever you are being called from. And yet at times it can happen that the outer or the mundane becomes too heavy, and one is not in absolute terms, we are not able to follow this call. That can happen. It has happened with many of us, and yet it persists. We know that there is something which I have to attend to, which I am not able to attend right now, but it calls me, but I'm not able to give it time. So that call is there, persistent. And that's where I think mother, in mother's words, she shares that that's each one has a mission on earth, and that's where our mission lies. That can be a beginning of revelation of my mission. Yeah, so any more reflections on this, anyone? Your personal reflections are most welcome here.
Yeah, hi.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so I also, when they were about the psychic shock, I know I've shared with you, but I want to share again that I remember when I had met you, like we were in our, Monica and my kids go to this, my child goes to the same school, and it was a play group, and she was somewhere else usually, and I used to be sitting with some other people in a different part of the school. And one day our paths crossed and we kind of stopped. And she was, I don't know, suddenly we started talking about the newspaper or something. I don't know exactly what it was. But I saw her standing, and I was, I don't know, sitting or I was opposite her. And suddenly there was this complete peace. I could hear her mouth, kind of move, her lips move. but I could not hear any sound. Like it was all silent. And there was this thing that just came to me that, and now my life changes, like, and now it changes. And suddenly, and then everything came back. But I mean, it's like, embedded in my memory so strongly at how that happened. So that was pretty beautiful. But again, this psychic shock, this has happened to me, like, again, meeting random strangers also. I remember once I had gone to Badrinath, like it's a, Hindu pilgrimage site. And there was a saint. I don't know, I felt such a strong pull towards him. Like I was on a different part of a temple and I saw him walking by, and it was like as if I cannot, it's like my feet started walking themselves towards him. And as soon as I, went to him and he's like, oh, so you're here now, kind of a thing. And we had a conversation. That's a different story. But again and again, if I just see how things are beyond logic and how there's so much happening below the surface, it helps to not take things so seriously. It helps to again and again. I mean, it's sad that I need these constant reminders, self reminders that I'm more, there's more, like there's so much happening. I mean, the ocean is so deep and I just see the waves. So, yeah, that was something.
Yeah, thank you so much. I remember that meeting also. Thank you. Thanks for sharing. Yeah, would anyone want to share anything? Sharda ji, Shweta, Abhishek. Yeah. So, one anecdote which Alokda was sharing, which I found was very beautiful on this, where she shares, yet all my inner constructions have vanished like a vain dream. So Alokda was sharing that somebody asked Kapali Shastri, because Kapali Shastri ji had been through, the Vedantic tradition, he's been to Ramana Maharishi before. And somebody was asking him that, what did all these experiences give you? You're landing up here. What have they given you? Something like that. And he said that, well, they have brought me to the feet of the Divine Mother. So that was the work of those mental constructions, or whatever experiences he had before meeting the mother, that before I knew that, okay, this is where my new life begins. All the happenings, experiences, what are they? They are nothing but a ladder, one can say. Or like a, when we have a building which is getting prepared, we see that there is a construct either with these long wooden sticks or with the iron frames, and after that we develop the building. And then later on, those wooden frames have no meaning, they are taken off, because now they have given whatever they had to give to the building. So I think that's how our journeys are, that no experience is waste experience. As Sri Aurobindo says, all our stumblings are his ways in which the world perfects itself. So all our errors are his steps on the way. In Savitri it comes. So each and every experience, the divine can be called as master recycler. So even our experiences of ignorance, darkness, absolute ugliness, they're all made use of. And as we know, with Mother and Sri Aurobindo, that the psychic is leading our life behind the veil, and it's only a matter of it coming into front and then consciously being the king and the master of our life, which also happens, whether in this life or another, we don't know. But before that, the psychic is leading the life. So even those so-called random chance experiences, in Savitri, Sri Aurobindo clearly says that there is, they are made to appear like chance for the fun of adventure. One anecdote of Amal Kiran, I think, where he saw for the first time on a shoe paper box, shoe box was wrapped with a newspaper, and where he saw Sri Aurobindo's article and picture, I think, for the first time. So it appears like a chance happening, but Everything is a grand design, it seems, to bring more and more closer to our divinity. And I think these are not big words. We all have this mission to perform, which is uniting with our divinity. We, we have to make this a part of our life now. And as we have temples, and in temples there are gradations, like you enter the outer temple first, and then the middle one, and then in the heart of the temple there is this little cave like structure where you have a little golden or very old idol of a deity. So that's called the heart of thy sanctuary. So meeting Sri Aurobindo and having this inner communion with Sri Aurobindo, I feel we have entered the very heart of thy sanctuary, the divine sanctuary, and grown aware of thy very will. So, in that moment of that instant recognition, you just know your purpose in life. You know your mission is going to come to fruition. There is no doubt about it now. It's just a matter of time and expansion. And when we have this feeling, then we are just stuck with this great joy. We are there where we are supposed to be. A great joy, a deep peace reign in me. And yet, all my inner constructions have vanished like a vain dream. And I find myself now before thy immensity without a frame or system. So, as Jishnuji was also sharing, and what we read from the book, on the mother, that now complete erasing of all the past spiritual accomplishments, or all the experiences, so nothing is there, nothing is needed to be, because all that was leading mother to this place where she is right now. So without a frame or a system, like a being not yet individualized, how beautiful can it be, and how humble, as if mother is just a newborn, and the being is now, the being will get a new individuality, which would be the true individuality. And before that, whatever was happening was just a construct to lead mother to this point. So now the true game is going to begin. So, like a being not yet individualized, all the past in its external form seems ridiculously arbitrary to me. And yet, I know it was useful in its own time. So, we all know that before we arrive, and all of us will arrive, at whatever our mission is, the beginning of our mission, we all arrive, whether in this lifetime, in eternity, there are several lifetimes, so maybe in another. But all the previous happenings are nothing but a structure made for us to reach to that point where our mission can begin. So, what a divine certitude that's there. And it cannot be, although it seems, mother says, ridiculously arbitrary, that what was I doing until now, something like that. But mother says that, yet I know it was useful in its own time. Everything had a purpose. But now all is changed. A new stage has begun. So, a beginning of a new possibility and a new dawn for mother, and also Sri Aurobindo, what mother kind of invited him to begin after she came. I think she launched Arya, she convinced Sri Aurobindo, she and Paul Richard, they started Arya, and mother was one of the force to bring Sri Aurobindo, out to share his experiences and what he had envisioned about the new world. And also this new group that they formed, it was called the New Idea, some French name also. So they began this new group with a small group of sincere seekers. Yeah, so any reflections here before we move to April 2? Anyone?
So here only one thing I would like to add, and so we know that among Sri Aurobindo's disciples, naturally Nulinida was surely one of the greatest learned person, who himself has great works assigned to him, which he himself wrote. And Nulinda said once that, and he had also not only he read Sanskrit, he read all the Vedas, Upanishads, and others to the extent he could interpret themselves independently. So he once said that he was talking to mother something about Upanishad or one of these things, and he said that I felt as if I had a little bit pride coming on me, on his intellectual prowess. And then mother listened to everything, and then mother said, "Yeah, Nulini, what you just said, I had all these mental constructions in me. I had all this formulated, but when I met Shurabindo, he broke everything." And then Nulini did, and mother said, I had all this before I came to India. And then Nulinda naturally, he felt so humble. So I thought I will share.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. So, I think in the interest of time also, maybe it will be too rushed up if we take the new prayer. So, maybe I'll just read something in alignment with what we were discussing, and then we can share reflections and end today here, and then take up the next two prayers next time, because it will be good to go into the context also. So, just again reading this bit from the same book on the mother. Meera would come to Sri Aurobindo daily in the afternoon between 4 and 4:30, bringing sweetmeats prepared from coconut. She would make cocoa too. Meera and Sri Aurobindo would compare notes, as it were, regarding their occult and spiritual adventures. They had their hopes and dreams about the future, and in the early months, Meera started learning Sanskrit and Bengali from Sri Aurobindo and made fair progress. The young men who were now living with Sri Aurobindo, Jishnuji was mentioning Nolinida, so Nolini, Muni, Moni, and Bijoy Nag would go out at about 5 to play football and return an hour later. On Sundays, however, Sri Aurobindo walked up at 4:30 in the evening to the Richards' place and stayed on for the dinner, where Nolini and the others would join him. And the talk would go sometimes till late at night, and Sri Aurobindo would return to his rooms. And then it was very sweet when I read this, so just sharing that, and then we can end. Amrita, uh, one day on Amrita's request, Bijoy introduced him to Meera. Now, for all these seekers, mother is very new, she's something new here happening. And now a marvelous association began. On Sundays and Thursdays at 10 a.m., Meera and Amrita read yogic sadhan together, seated on chairs facing each other almost as equals. And in the coming weeks, Amrita began to feel little by little the full force of Meera's personality. And he shares an image of immeasurable power. That was how I felt the mother to be whenever I approached her. She, however, held that power in herself without allowing the least display of it. I think this would be the grounding, the humility, what Jishnuji was talking about. On some occasions, the great power would shine forth irresistibly. Our inner sense would perceive this inner radiation if it was awake. Not only myself, but some of my friends those days would approach the mother with our contradictory ideas and doubts. And after a talk with her, each one of us would be filled with an unaccountable purity and joy. And self oblivious, we would come back home talking merrily like people living in a happy world. So I found this very cute and innocent. That's what I'd share. So this book is a very, I think it's a like really a Bible on mother's life, along with all the other beautiful things that are there. Yeah, anything else anyone wants to add on?
One humorous incident, because now that we are coming to that way.
Yeah.
So, and this happened after mother returned from Japan in 1920. So there used to be one person. This is, I think, either early days of ashram or ashram was not formed. And because Sri Aurobindo still used to meet people outside. So what happened is one person, I think his name was Tamil person, I forgot his name, Rangarajan or somebody. So every day he used to meet mother for some work, and mother used to give him a smile. And that day mother, either she did not smile, so he was very, very upset. And then Sri Aurobindo asked, why are you so upset? Isn't my smile beautiful?
Good one. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing. Okay, so before we end, I was just wanting to ask if we need a change of time or if 7 o'clock suits everyone. So if anyone wants to share anything, then we can go with the majority, whatever suits most of us. Yeah.
Yeah, 7 is fine actually. Yeah.
7 is fine for you? Okay. Okay. What about, yeah, Jishnuji, you want to share?
Actually, it will be better if it's later, for me.
Okay. Like 9
So,
o'clock?
yeah, 9 is best. But
9
of
is
course, as
best.
you say, yeah, at
Mm.
times 7 I come because I cannot manage early.
I understand. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Okay, Shweta, Abhishek, Taru. Sardaji, can you manage at 9 also?
No, actually, I have some other class at 9:15 to 10:15. So that's why I'm thinking.
Okay, 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 okay. And what about 8 to 9?
8:15 fine.
8 to
Fine.
9 would suit you. Okay, 8
Yeah.
to 9 would suit you. Jishnuji,
Yeah,
8 to
that would
9?
be fine with, yeah, that would be
Okay.
fine with me.
Abhishek ji?
8 o'clock is fine. As much as later is fine, that's fine.
Yeah, understand. Yeah. Shweta?
Yeah. Anything is fine. Like for me, it's the same. 7, 8, 9.
Perfect.
Chances are, yeah, same.
Okay, okay, okay. So I think for those of us who are working and then coming back after work, maybe 7 is too early. So let's I'll share it on the groups also. Let's make it 8 o'clock from next week, and it would be, I think for Taru also it's okay. So yeah,
Thank you, Monica. Thank you so much.
thank you so much everyone. Yeah, thanks for joining.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. Bye. Happy practice.